Welcome to Module 2. This is a series of training sessions designed to get you ready for examiner training in 2020 for the IMEC recognition program. This module will introduce you to the Baldrige and IMEC award programs. Our objectives are to clarify for you exactly what the Baldrige and IMEC awards are, your role as an examiner and our expectations of examiners, some key dates in the upcoming award cycle, our three-stage evaluation process, the way examiner assignments are made, the materials you'll need to effectively prepare for and participate in examiner training, and our seven-step application review process. Let me start with briefly introducing you to the Baldrige Award. As mentioned in the prior session, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, manages the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. And that award was named after the late Secretary of Commerce, Malcolm Baldrige, who was a proponent of quality management and served under then President Ronald Reagan. It was in 1987 that the U.S. Congress established the Baldrige Award, and its purpose at that time, and still to this day, is to recognize achievement and raise awareness about quality and performance excellence as a competitive edge. Baldrige makes awards in 6 different categories. Manufacturing, service, and small business have been categories they've made awards in since the inception. As you can tell on the right, more recently, since 1999, healthcare and education have had Baldrige Awards, and since 2007, there's been a separate category of award called nonprofits. Over the roughly 30 years that Baldrige has been in operation, there has come to be what can only be described as a fairly widespread family of Baldrige-based award programs. There are programs modeled after Baldrige in some 80 countries, about 40 states. Different cities and companies have had their own award programs modeled after Baldrige. And we've also seen quite a bit of convergence between Baldrige and other standards, including ISO and AQIP, which is part of the Higher Learning Commission's evaluation process, and the Joint Commission. There's now a lot of similarity between these different standards. There's also a formal feeder system between the Baldrige Award at the national level and state award programs like IMEC. In fact, in order to apply for a Baldrige Award at the national level, you must first achieve your state's highest award, which for us here in Illinois would be our Level 3 Gold Award. You must first achieve that award or else receive a waiver from Baldrige, which is primarily available to organizations in states that don't have a state-based award program. We do here in Illinois, as I mentioned before. It's managed by IMEC, the Illinois Recognition Program, based on the Baldrige Award, is designed to provide stepping stones to applicant organizations and a tiered award so that you can achieve recognition at various levels as you move through the journey. The 3 different IMEC award programs were introduced in the first module. Let me briefly touch on these again. The Interest in Excellence, sometimes referred to as Level 1, can either be a facilitated or non-facilitated process. It typically takes about 2 to 3 months to complete. Our Level 2, which is our newest offering, called Focus on Application, again, either facilitated or non-facilitated, and can include a site visit. You should expect that to take about 3 to 5 months to complete. And then our full award, the 50-page application, the Award for Excellence, or Level 3. There is no facilitated option for that. Applicants submit their 50-page application, examiners review it, come to site visit. That typically takes about 6 to 10 months to complete. It's worth noting that participants at all levels, interest, focus, and the full Award for Excellence are recognized at the annual Conference on Enterprise Excellence that IMEC does. Let me double click here on the Award for Excellence, or our Level 3 application, which is the full 50-page application. Talk a little bit about the different types of awards one can achieve when applying at this level. When you submit the full 50-page application, very similar to what you would submit at the Baldrige level if you were applying nationally, examiners will review your information. You'll then receive a site visit, and based upon the findings, your achievement and improvement in both your processes and results, you become eligible for, though not guaranteed, but eligible for one of 3 different award levels. That's our Bronze Award for Commitment to Excellence, our Silver Award for Progress Towards Excellence, and our Gold Award for Achievement of Excellence. As I mentioned before, in order to be eligible to apply for Baldrige, one must first achieve the Gold Award for Achievement of Excellence here in Illinois. Now, many of you may come to this thinking that this will be similar to auditing if you have some experience in auditing. And there are similarities, but it's important to recognize that there's also differences. This is not a yes or no framework. This is a developmental framework or maturity model. I think this quote by Charles Callahan, Baldrige Award recipient from Memorial Health System, helps to understand a bit of this. He says the Baldrige criteria for performance excellence are not rules to follow at all. Rather, they are a set of integrated principles designed to foster an organization's development of its own internal system for excellence, matched to its unique mission, vision, culture, and customer requirements. And so we expect applicants to be diverse and innovative in the way they respond to the criteria, and it's our job to understand those differences and the extent to which those differences help them meet their unique operating needs and where they're at on the continuum as they continue to refine and develop their own unique performance excellence system. Now, as an examiner, your role then is to review the materials provided by the applicant to first understand their unique situation, the competitive challenges and regulatory challenges they face, to identify possible strengths and opportunities for improvement, which we often shorthand refer to as OFIs, as a team to reach consensus on those possible strengths and OFIs and determine which you should investigate, then to prepare for and conduct the site visit, during which the team will spend typically 1 week on the ground with the applicant in order to verify strengths and clarify those possible opportunities for improvement. And then based upon the findings of that site visit, you will develop a feedback report with actionable information on the key strengths and opportunities for improvement, as well as item level scores, percentage scores, that reflect the maturity of the organization's processes and their results. As you perform these roles, we expect each examiner to adhere to our code of conduct. Examiners are expected to disclose potential conflicts of interest. Here, I would encourage you that if you have any doubt about a possible conflict, ask the award office. Don't decide for yourself. Let it be their determination. We expect you to follow the prescribed approaches that are outlined in our standard work, which you'll be learning a great deal about in our upcoming training. We expect you to be a good team member and honor time commitments. We also take very seriously the need to protect the confidentiality of applicant information. Don't tell anyone who your applicant is, including your spouse, your secretary, etc. During your performance as an examiner, we want you to exhibit professional conduct in order to protect the integrity of the award process and represent IMEC in a professional manner. This slide summarizes some of the key dates. Holly can provide you the full recognition calendar if you'd like it. It's worth noting that upcoming training for senior examiners will occur on April 22nd. All first-year examiners will have a 2-day virtual training, May 11th and 12th, during which you'll be preparing the pre-work for our all-examiner training, which includes both new and experienced examiners on May 13, 14. Again, that will be conducted virtually this year. Applicants will be submitting their information in late May. And you can see then that essentially June, July, and August will be going through what we refer to as our 3-stage process. So June will be our individual review period. July will be our consensus meeting, as well as that'll be a 2-day process. The first will be our consensus. The second will be beginning to receive training and prepare for the actual site visit. Judges meet in early August, but you can see late August is when you'll be going on site. We'll have 3 weeks of site visit, beginning the week of August 16, 23, and 31. Feedback reports are distributed to applicants in October, as well as the public announcement of IMEC Award for Excellence recipients based upon examiner findings and judges' determinations. So those are the key dates that we'll be going through this cycle. And you can see embedded in the calendar, this June, July, August, we talked about an individual review period, consensus, and then site visit. And that's very much our 3-stage process that we go through to evaluate applications. You can see on this slide, application for the IMEC award is made. Applicants submit a document with up to a maximum of 50 pages. And we take it through these three stages. As an examiner team is assigned, each of you individually reviews portions of that during stage one, independent review. We then prepare for and work together as a group to achieve consensus on that, and then prepare for and conduct as a group the site visit. And it's the findings of the site visit that result in development of the feedback report that then is submitted or issued back to the applicant. So if you look at each of these three stages in a bit more detail, kind of the mechanics of what's going on in there is that in stage one, we assign our examiners into three work groups: work group one, work group two, work group three. Each of you essentially has a third of the application that becomes your primary focus. You're still expected to read the full application, but your actual independent review in stage one will be zeroed in on the sections that for which your work group has responsibility. And you'll be doing that in a tool we call the Criteria Grid. It's an Excel-based workbook that is our tool for conducting or performing independent review, consensus, and even preparing for site visit. And you can see that in stage two consensus, essentially the work groups will then work together to agree on what from the individual or independent review do we believe are the key strengths and the key opportunities for improvement. And that will take us down to three different criteria grids, one for each work group. And then the team lead will consolidate those three into what we call the master criteria grid, so that everyone in the team is operating off the same criteria grid as we prepare for and conduct the site visit in stage three. The criteria grid is used during preparation for and to some extent during the site visit, but it's also during site visit on the Wednesday of site that we shift from the criteria grid to the feedback report template and actually copy and paste the strengths and opportunities from your criteria grid into the feedback report template, which is a Word document. That feedback report will ultimately be refined and go to the applicant. It'll include an executive summary, an overall score of somewhere between 0 and 1,000 points. And that overall score is based upon the item level percentage scores that reflect the feedback comments, the strengths and OFEs that are written at the item level as well. You'll be learning much more about this entire process during upcoming examiner training. I just wanted to introduce you to this notion of three stages. You'll see this more fully detailed as we move through and describe our 7-step process for moving through the three stages. And also wanted to introduce you to the concept of the criteria grid, which will be a key tool that you'll be learning about. Also, during examiner training, we'll be simulating many of the activities that you will learn and need to perform during both stage one and stage two. It's during the second day of our consensus meeting that you'll be introduced to many of the techniques that we used for stage three site visit. So now you can already tell that we essentially organize our examiner teams into three work groups. So typically we have a 7-person examiner team that includes a team lead, often a multi-year experienced examiner, and then 3 work groups, each of which is essentially 2 people, a work group lead and a new or novice examiner. So each work group will have 2 people, 3 work groups, 6 people, plus the team lead. And you can see that the assignment to work groups, essentially work group 1 will include that lead and 1 other examiner, and that work group 1 will be focused on categories 1 and 5, as well as results items in 7.3 and 7.4. Work group 2 will be assigned categories 2 and 4 and results items 7.5. And then work group 3 will be assigned categories 3 and 6 and the associated results items, which are 7.2 and 7.1. It's also important that we have someone with industry expertise in work group 3, since that's where our processes and industry-specific results and other things occur. So if we have a healthcare applicant, we definitely want someone who's healthcare knowledgeable assigned to work group 3 with each of our teams. Same thing if we were to have a manufacturing applicant, etc. Now, it's worth noting that examiner assignments vary, so we'll be preparing you to the ability to conduct an assessment of a full level 3 50-page application. It's worth knowing that some examiners will be assigned to level 1 or 2. You probably already know that. If that's the case, you should talk to Holly if you're unsure about that. Of those Examiners that are assigned to a level 3, a full 50-page application, in some cases, not all of you will go to site visit, and we'll be doing some observation and evaluation during our upcoming training of our examiners. The breakout leaders and others will be providing the award office with input to inform the assignment of examiners to different teams. And it's possible, though somewhat unlikely, but possible that some examiners, even first or second year examiners, will be asked to serve as work group leads. Essentially, the competencies we're looking for in all of our examiners, but particularly our work group leads, are shown here in the slide and include active participation, listening and facilitation skills, the ability to think in terms of processes and systems, your understanding and use of our standard work, as well as your understanding of the criteria, understanding of continuous improvements methods and performance excellence system. We need examiners on each team, each work group really, with some familiarity with or competence in using Microsoft Excel, since our criteria grid is an Excel-based tool. And in some cases, we're looking to make sure we have industry expertise represented on each of our applicant teams, examiner teams. Now, one of the things you need to do, part of your assignment prior to our live sessions, is to get your hands-on download from Box with Holly's instruction, all of the materials you're going to need. So one of those is the Excel-based criteria grid that I mentioned to you previously. The others are all PDF documents. And so we'll be providing you with examiner training handouts. These include worksheets that we'll use during the exercises, as well as the slides that we'll use to guide instruction during the training classes. You'll need a copy of the 2019-2020 Baldrige Criteria. You'll need a copy of the case study that we'll be using, which is, again, this year, the LifeBridge Organ and Transplant Sharing is our fictitious applicant organization. So the Baldrige is repeating the same applicant from last year, but ostensibly they've made improvements since their last feedback report. So that'll be interesting for those of you who are returning. For new examiners, it's worth noting that this is a completely fictitious case study. It's designed to mimic an application. There is no real life organization here hiding behind the curtain. It's all made up stuff. And of course, we want you to get your hands on and familiarize yourself with our 2020 examiner standard work. This is a very detailed document that includes guidelines and instructions. It's over 100 pages, and so it's well organized and hyperlinked so that you can easily access the different areas within it. It provides clear step-by-step instructions on how to do many of these things, and in that sense provides you with a valuable resource for real-time training as you move through the process, and guidelines on how to effectively accomplish it. Now, the examiner standard work is organized around the 7 steps in the application review process shown here. So step 1, we form our teams. Step 2, we go through independent review. Step 3 is consensus. Step 4, or prep for consensus rather. Step 4 is conducting the actual consensus meeting, and this year a second day of that will be to begin step 5, the prep for training and prep for site visit. Step 6 is to conduct that site visit, and then there's a little bit of follow-up primarily for team leads after. You can see there are 2 judges call, one prior to site visit and one after all site visits have been conducted. And essentially what the rest of the slide kind of lays out a bit of the detail here. For those of you that are new examiners, I would point you to the information in red on this slide. Everything on this slide gets done, but the stuff in red is what new examiners do. So you can tell that what happens in step 2, new examiners have to complete their independent review for the items they've been assigned. You need the application standard work and criteria grid to do it. In step 3, you share your completed grid with your work group lead. During the consensus meeting, you and your work group lead will agree on strengths and OFI nuggets. During step 5, you'll work with your lead to develop interview strategies and questions. And then, of course, you'll fully participate during the site visit itself. Monday and Tuesday will be on site, verifying strengths, clarifying OFIs. Wednesday, the team will be at the hotel beginning to turn those findings into feedback. On Thursdays of site visits, when we typically split the team in half, where half remain at the hotel cleaning up the feedback, the other half return to close any open issues and begin to test deployment if we've not already done so. Friday is really intended to finalize feedback, and it's important to note that we expect examiners to arrive on Sunday for site visit and stay until the feedback is finalized on Friday. There's no early departures. You can see the rest, everything in blue on this slide are things that occur, but it's the work group leads and team leads who accomplish these things. So we'll be forming the teams, and you'll be learning more about some of these other things that leads do during our upcoming training, but included here are some of the highlights would be prior to independent review, the work group leads and team lead meet to talk about what we call key factors, priority key factors, and priority questions. And we've got some additional information that we'll be using with our leads this year to help focus our assessment, make sure that we're zeroing in on areas of importance to our applicant. You can also see in step 3, the work group lead will be incorporating his or her work with his fellow team member as we prepare for consensus. But one of the things we're doing differently this year is that our team lead will actually begin working with the applicant point of contact prior to consensus to begin to prepare for the site visit itself. So we're moving up some of those first applicant point of contact calls with the team lead to much earlier in our process. And that's so that when we get to the consensus meeting, we actually are able on day 2 to begin developing the site visit agenda and do a working meeting to begin site visit prep. We won't have everything we need after. You can see in step 5, there will be some additional requests for information from the applicant by the team lead, who will request documents and updated results and things like that as we continue to prepare for site. In step 7, you can see that it's primarily the team lead and judge, along with the award office, who will finalize the feedback report and make that available to our applicants. At different points along the way, there are quality checks. Each team is assigned a designated judge who will serve as mentor to the team lead. The judge and award office rep and team lead will be reviewing everyone's independent review prior to consensus, be reviewing everybody's site visit interview questions prior to site visit, be reviewing information before it gets presented to the applicant at the conclusion of the process to ensure quality in our work and consistency between our various applicants. So what's next? You've completed 2 of the 3 modules that are considered pre-work to the upcoming examiner training. We would ask you to complete module 3, which is a review of the Baldrige Criteria framework. So you're going to need a copy of the actual Baldrige Criteria. You're going to want to flip through it as this module will essentially walk you through the criteria booklet itself. You're going to want to begin to obtain the other materials that you need for examiner training, which I previously mentioned on the prior slide. And prior to this upcoming live/virtual training in May, you're going to want to read the LOTS case study, focusing specifically on the organizational profile. Returning examiners will be asked to complete some item evaluations as pre-work prior to their 2-day training. New examiners are asked to read the case study prior to new examiner training. You're not asked to do any additional pre-work prior to that. But it does make sense if you review and familiarize yourself with 2 things. One is the examiner standard work, which is a PDF document that I previously mentioned, as well as the criteria grid, which is the Excel tool in which you'll be doing a lot of your work during the full examiner training. Thank you for participating in these 3 modules. We hope they've been helpful and look forward to meeting and working with all of you during our upcoming training.